I have got to cut my grass today. Before I cut the grass, let me explain something to you real quick. Nobody told me that the real battle was me. When I first became a Christian, I thought the battle was going to be Hollywood, social media, bad influences, temptations of the world trying to drag me back into the grave that God pulled me out of. And yes, technically that is a part of it. But what nobody explained to me was that the biggest fight wasn't out there. The biggest fight was in here. The front line of the war runs right through your own mind. When someone says now that you're a Christian, now you join God's army, the real fight, the real war begins. Mature Christians are not talking about the world fighting against you, although, like I said, that's part of it. They're talking about the war between your new heart and your old way of thinking. See, when God saves you, He gives you a new heart, right? The Bible says you become a new creation. But God doesn't instantly, and I wish He did, but He doesn't instantly erase 10, 20, 30, or like in my case, 50 years of bad habits through thought patterns, fear, anger, addiction, pride, selfishness, and worldly thinking. Your heart is new, but your mind has to be renewed. That's why it says in Romans 12:2, it says, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind through prayer, Bible, church attendance, and Christian friends. For years, you've been downloading the world's software right into your brain, right? Your brain is like a computer. It's not a generator. It doesn't just create its own thoughts. It doesn't create its own programs. It runs on whatever's been installed. If you have fed it for decades, anger, lust, fear, selfishness, bitterness, pride, and worldly thinking, guess what's going to come out when life squeezes you, right? You can say you're an orange all day long, but when life squeezes you and grape juice comes out, you're not an orange, you're a grape. You can claim to be a Christian all day, but what is exposed when you're squeezed? The same things that we put into our brain is the same thing that's going to come out, right? The heart now belongs to God. You now have a craving to get to know your Father, to get to read His Word. But the mind has years of bad programming that needs to be replaced. This is why we read the Word. This is why I do these videos. That's why the Christian life feels like a fight, because you're fighting, there's a war inside you. Not because you're crazy, not because you're losing your salvation, and not because God has abandoned you, but because there's a war going on inside you, bro. Galatians says that the flesh desires what is contrary to the spirit, and the spirit desires what's contrary to the flesh. So that means one wants one thing and the other wants totally the opposite, right? The flesh wants bad, but the spirit wants good and things that are going to save your life. And you're standing right in the middle of that battlefield. Think about it like when a fish is born in a small tank, right? It swims wherever it wants to, and it thinks it's free, but it's not free. It's trapped inside those glass walls. That's what the world does. It convinces people that they're free while keeping them trapped in sin, fear, addiction, pride, and selfishness. Then Christ comes along and He just shatters that glass. He breaks the glass. Now, the fish has the entire ocean available, right? But now here's the problem. The fish has spent its whole life learning how to live in a small tank. Now, freedom feels absolutely strange and uncomfortable. That's why many Christians struggle. That's why many Christians go back to their old way of living because it's comfortable to them. The old feels familiar, and the new life is uncomfortable as hell. I'm here to tell you, right? But uncomfortable doesn't mean wrong. It means that you're growing, right? The Christian life is a lot like learning how to walk. You know, when my babies first learned how to walk, it was ugly as hell. It was ugly big time. They fell, they stumbled, they weebled, they wobbled, they just crashed into things. Now, when I looked at them and I saw them falling, never one time did I sit there and go, well, I guess my babies are never gonna walk. Look at them, they're a friggin' mess. No, I expected them to fall. I expected them to crash into things. Why? Because falling is a part of learning. It's the same thing that happens to us spiritually. You stumble in your walk with Christ, right? You stumble and you fall. You lose your temper. You make mistakes. You absolutely fall. But then you get back up and you have other believers help you get back up. Everybody falls and we all need help getting back up. You learn, you grow, and you keep following Jesus. And then years later, you're not only walking, but you're running and you're standing firm in places where you used to fall every single day. That's called sanctification. That's spiritual growth. The fire that God puts you through isn't meant to destroy you. It's meant to refine you. Gold isn't ruined by fire. It is purified by it. God uses trials, struggles, failures, discipline, and hard seasons in your life to burn away all that junk and crap that you've been carrying around for years. Trust me, I know I'm still going through the fire. And yes, it hurts. It hurts like hell, bro. Sometimes a lot. But God isn't trying to harm his children. He's shaping them. So if you're struggling today, hear me on this. The fight doesn't mean that you're not saved. Actually, the fight probably shows evidence that God is working in you. Because dead people don't fight sin. Dead people don't wrestle with conviction. Dead people don't hunger for God and his word. The very fact that you're battling and grieving over your sin and wanting to change your life and watching this video is proof that the Spirit of God is alive in you and working something in you. You know, a lot of us grew up hearing, hey, just say this prayer and you're good. But nobody explained the war that was coming afterwards. Nobody explained the renewing of your mind. Nobody explained why we still struggle. So when the battle started, we thought something was wrong with us. But the truth is that God is teaching us how to walk. Keep reading the word, keep praying, and keep getting around believers who point you to Christ. And keep getting back up when you fail. The battle is real and the fire is definitely hot. But God finishes what he starts. So don't quit in the middle of the processing, of the refining processing, right? God saves you instantly, and then he spends a lifetime changing the way you think. Just something to think about, bro. Peace.